Hello, and welcome to the Women Changing the World podcast. I'm your host, Olivia D'Souza, and in this episode today, I am talking with Emma Allen. Hello, Emma.
Hello, great to join you today.
Great to join you. Now, of course, you're here because you have written in this amazing book, so I'd love to find out a bit more about you. So tell me, who is Emma?
So, I'm a mother of two. I started my business in property about 8 years ago, but it's really on the back of quite a long career in various different industries. I've always been one to really enjoy working within a team, but having a greater purpose. And I've always felt that I've had some unique skills that can bring people together and also empower people to do things they may not have thought they could. So I've taken that from the property industry and always really looked for charities that I could make a difference within. And relating to property, we've started to build houses and schools in Cambodia.
Oh,
So
wow.
the philanthropic side of me finds that that's a really nice balance to just running a business. It's a really nice add-on in a similar way, I guess, because we build houses in Australia for our clients, but now we also build them and gift them for these poor communities in Cambodia. My chapter is really centered around that and some of the other work that I've done locally.
What's your connection to Cambodia? What drew you to start helping over there and get inspired to do that?
Look, I really followed the journey of some Australians that were living over there because my heritage is actually Indonesian, so it's not actually Cambodian, even though lots of people think I am. It was really following some Australians that designed a house that was eco-friendly, very affordable, and that could be made by local resources with local labour. So I love the concept of being able to use Australian ingenuity and Australian resources, but to help Cambodians really empower their own people. So I think that the alignment with Cambodia is really around this expat network, but also learning about the very sad history that Cambodia has.
So, is this what you talk about in the book, or do you want to tell me what's in the story
Yes,
that you've included in your chapter?
yeah, absolutely. It's the story actually starts with the first trip that I made to Cambodia, and the operations manager back then was Samantha Town, and so Sam actually invited me downstairs. We jumped in our little tuk tuk, and it's really about my journey discovering the impact of what we had built, and then meeting the actual families themselves, and really creating a lot of friendships, lifelong friendships, in a country where we can't even can barely speak the language, and then eventually building the schools that became a part of it. And a part of my story also encompasses really, it's around giving people a fair go,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a fair go for them is as simple as just having clean water, and an education. And bringing that back home, I really am passionate about empowering women around financial literacy, but also just girls around financial literacy, as well as them being having the right to really decide what they do with their bodies and being confident. And so a lot of my work locally has been around empowering girls to be able to, with around self-defense
Wow.
and jiu-jitsu. So, so my chapter's titled, Are We Given a Fair Go If We Are Born Female or If We're Born into Poverty? So that's really the theme of the chapter, and it kind of weaves through those stories, starting off in Cambodia and then coming back to having a daughter and what that meant. I became, I guess, really important for me to become an advocate for.
So, what drew you to want to help in that particular area too? Women being able to defend themselves and to have control of their own bodies.
Well, firstly, we're a very sporty family. So I participate in jiu-jitsu as much as the kids do. And I think just having a group of mentors around her, a lot of female mentors, will just empower her to be able to speak up for herself and deal with things. Because if I think about the three generations, so my mum, myself, and my daughter, all women dealing with very different, I guess, environments, but similar issues. I think it's just played out differently because my daughter, especially around this age, around technology, cyberbullying, the way that pornography is viewed even at that young age. There's
Oh my
lots of
god,
issues
yeah.
that she needs to contend with that I didn't have to. but it's really scary for a parent to think what has become the norm and what's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of these uncomfortable topics are just not spoken about. And so in this particular dojo, there's a very strong sensei who advocates for, women's rights, girls being able to just appreciate their bodies for what they are and have the ability to say no. And so it's anti-bullying, anti-violence. So that is the outcome of being able to empower them, not just physically but mentally.
Thank you for doing that, I have to say, because this is something that I'm very concerned about as a parent too, is that I've become aware, and I don't know how many, as a percentage, how many people are aware that apparently this is how sex education, and that's not a proper education, is happening these days.
Yeah.
Is you give kids devices, and if we're not there watching, that's where they're finding things that are hardcore violent is now mainstream. And the expectations on girls, sending photos.
Yeah.
And so I'm very happy to hear that you're proactive and...
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a son, so the education's both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
We have just as much of a responsibility being a mother of sons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
I know.
It's so even fundraising to be able to offer this kind of martial arts to different girls of all religions, of all different types of socioeconomic backgrounds. It's hard to really promote it and have the support like you might with other charities sometimes. It's almost easier sometimes with the Cambodian stuff than it is with this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting, and that's why I felt like it was important for me to include it in my chapter, as much as I'm really for the Cambodian side, that this was something that I thought just needed a voice as well.
Yeah, it definitely does. But I find I share it. It often doesn't get a lot of engagement, but you just have to keep putting it out there because parents have to know what's happening, have their eyes open.
Yeah.
All right. So, did I hear you say something about schools? Are you doing something with schools in Cambodia?
Yes, we did. Yeah, there was a little community where Global Village Housing is actually the name of the Australian charity. So Global Village Housing had been helping one little community, again in remote parts of Cambodia where a lot of the mainstream charities can't reach. So this little team goes out and tries to find the poorest of the poor. And they realised that this old decrepit school was a mere shack with 60 students. And I said to Samantha, just casually in a conversation, what do you want to do next year? Is there something more that we can help you with? Because I really love what we've done. And she said, actually, there's this school that really needs a renovation. And so we went, great. And that's how the school project was born. So we had an event, sold out an event, raised 3 times more than what we needed, and we built a school.
Wow.
Firstly, a renovated school, and then we actually built a second school. But the number of kids went from 60 enrolled to 180 in the space of 6 months.
Wow.
So those kids were there, they just had nowhere to go. And we also raised funds to do school packs. So that's school bag, uniform, shoes, hat, school resources. We bought resources for the teachers. We gave them laptops. We kitted it out. And before we got there might have been like 1 or 2 posters on the wall, and that was it. So by the time we actually went to visit, there was another 60 kids enrolled in school. So clearly they want to go to school, but there just was no place to go.
Wow.
So we've seen such a big impact.
So that the school has the capacity to be able to bring more students in. That's what's happened?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So those kids were always there, but they were probably out in the farms or in the fields, doing what they were doing. But in addition to that, we were able to bring toilets, so sanitation. At the event, we actually had a family sponsor the boys' toilet, and then we got another sponsorship to build a girls' block. And that's really important because a lot of the girls, once they start menstruating, stop going to school. Mm-hmm. They're also the primary carer of the younger siblings. So a lot of young girls just miss out on their education completely.
They can't manage their menstrual period, that they have to stay home because they just don't have the resources.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So toilets are another big thing that Jason Thatcher, the founder of Global Village Housing, talks about. Because if they lived in a village and just say a young girl needed to go to the toilet late at night, she would have to venture off into the bushes and all sorts of unimaginable things would happen. So Jason talks a lot about bringing toilets as a way to just give them somewhere safe and private to go. and something that a lot of us would probably take for granted, but is, such an important piece that we can add to the housing that they build out there in those rural communities.
How long have you been doing this?
I think I must have started talking with them in about 2015.
I'm just imagining the ripple effect by now. How does that make you feel?
Oh, look, I feel like it's a drop in the ocean, but I do know I'm very happy that we can make a direct impact. And I think it's the transparency of Global Village Housing that I really like because it's grassroots. It's not soaked up in admin fees. So much of it goes straight into the projects, and I've seen it and I've experienced it, and I've met the kids at those schools. And so I can at least come back to our supporters here to say, here are the photos. It's 100% legitimate. And yeah, no, I'm happy to be a part of it. Really, really happy.
And so, how do you fund it? You do some fundraising activities.
Yes, it's been hard with COVID because the last one we actually had my daughter and she led it with two of her friends. So it was a kids project. And that was the last time we could go over in 2019. So we did like a family bingo night. We've done other events. We've also done corporate fundraising. So we'll combine some of my business partners, inspire them to actually help out as well. So we collaboratively build houses together. Yeah, that's usually the primary method. But my business as well, where we're committed to at least building a couple of houses a year. So there's always that stream that I'll have to keep going.
So, what challenges have you faced along the way? I can't imagine what it's like going to a completely other country and having to find all the resources you need to build homes and schools and stuff. What's it been like?
The global village housing are really the key to it. I honestly, I feel like I'm here to give them my skills, my time, the time of my team to help the market to connect the people who need it and the people who can provide. I feel like that's my role in the whole piece, but it's really the team at Global Village Housing that are sourcing the labour and the materials. I just feel like it's a part of me to be able to accelerate what they're doing, to leverage what I have. And my chapter also touches into, this aspect. I believe there's like a multiplying effect, especially when you're working with people on the ground who are so transparent and genuine. So if I can get behind them, I know that my efforts are multiplied even more. I think the challenge for me is firstly not being able to get over there and see everyone like we had been every year, but really it's to continue doing the work this far away without being as connected as closely as we used to be. It's a lot harder.
It is harder. Thank God we've got the internet at least. But I'm just imagining that there's several, I don't know how many houses you've built.
I think we've done upwards of 15 now. Global Village Housing, we were proud to sponsor their 400th house earlier this year. So they've done 400, and that's just a little grassroots Australian organisation.
Amazing. It's 15 families, and each of them have family and friends. It's just a flow-on effect, I'm sure, that's happening that in ways that you'll never know. Like, and all those kids in the schools that who weren't going to have an education and will have an education and go on to hopefully have jobs.
I think so. I think the schools really, that's very close to my heart because it's everything from the school and education, even down to the water. The well that we built is now really a centre for community health and wellbeing. So there's so many parts. So, I mean, we gave them a playground, and a lot of them have never played in a playground before. So if we think of like just the joy that they will have being associated with school and learning, yes, that I think there'll be lots of children to benefit from that.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, was there any aspect in the story that you wanted to cover that I haven't asked you about yet?
I think they're the main parts. It's really around those two charities, but I think if we can see that something needs to change, I think we just need to have, the desire to want to create that change because we need to actually act and do something. That's the key difference between just thinking about change and actually becoming an advocate or an activist to create that change. And I think there are lots of people who are probably already along that journey around causes that are close to people's hearts. And if they can just get behind those people, I think that multiplying effect is just tremendous. So even if we're only doing the smallest acts of kindness, it still goes a long, long way.
So supporting, you could go and find people that are doing what you love and get behind them and magnify their efforts.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's where I see I can have the biggest impact. So even though I'm not on the ground there all the time, if I can help accelerate what they're trying to do, then that's a good thing.
So, okay, is there any other message that you have for people before we wrap up?
I think that's it. Yeah, if people have a need and desire to want to do something, to take action.
And how can people find you and connect with you?
They can probably connect with us via the Houses for Cambodia Facebook page
Mm-hmm.
or the Instagram page so they can see our activities. Otherwise, at activepropertyinvesting.com.au is my website. So there's a lot of the charity work around there too.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. And also, we can put links for all of those things in the show notes, as well as how to buy the book, which I think will be very interesting and inspiring. And I really look forward to reading it myself and reading your chapter. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
Thanks, Emma.